Hello and welcome to PowerSpeaking Live. I'm Carrie Beckstrom, the host of this monthly series and the CEO of PowerSpeaking Incorporated. Given the topic, I'd like to kick things off with a quick activity. So I'm going to say something, and then your role is to add on, beginning with the words yes and. Ready? The workplace would be so much more fun and productive if all meetings started with a personal icebreaker. Okay, your turn. In chat, build on that, starting with the words yes and. Again, my response was, the workplace would be so much more fun if all meetings started with a personal icebreaker. Yes, and a big smile. Yes, and we go to find out one secret from each team member. Yes, and finishing the meetings with some uplifting comments not related to work. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for joining in. What we just did there is a fundamental principle of improv. And improv isn't just for actors on stage. It is a mindset shift that can transform the way we communicate at work. Think about it. You're in a meeting and your boss suddenly asks for your input on a project that you're not prepared to discuss. Or you're in the middle of a high stakes presentation and suddenly your slides freeze. In those moments, you don't have time to script a perfect reply. You have to improvise. And the good news is, improv isn't about being funny and theatrical. It's about listening deeply, being 100% present, and responding in a way that builds trust and connection. And that is what we're going to be delving into today. We're going to be talking about how improv skills can be used to help you respond with confidence when the unexpected occurs, whether you're delivering a presentation, contributing in a meeting, or simply navigating those inevitable curveballs. And today, to contribute to this conversation, we have two expert improv facilitators with us. I am delighted to introduce both of them. First up is Vince Rickey. Vince, as an improv facilitator, Stanford instructor, and creative coach for design teams, Vince has over 3 decades of experience spanning education, admissions counseling, and curriculum development. Among other things, he currently teaches the Stanford Continuing Studies course, The Improviser's Toolbox, which is a course for adults seeking more confidence, creativity, in calm in uncertain moments. Who doesn't want that? Vince, I want to learn more about that course and sign up. It is such a treat to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
All right. And also joining us is Jess Rogers. Jess recently joined our PowerSpeaking team as a facilitator and coach working out of the UK. And Jess is an experienced and passionate communication and improv facilitator, specializing in enhancing all types of conversations, from team collaboration to group presentations, one-on-one discussions, and everything in between. Jess helps people find their best, most authentic personal style to craft and deliver stories and messages in a compelling way. And I just learned Jess is also a dancer. I love how you were swaying the opening music. It's a delight.
Time I would be a horrible dancer, but I can't resist a little shoulder wiggle.
Yeah, you did well working out of your chair. All right. So, and thank you to the audience. You played from the very start. So I can already tell this is going to be a very engaging, fun, and insightful conversation. And I encourage you in the audience to contribute your ideas, ask your questions. We'd love to take them. So I'd like to start off with you, Jess. In your experience, what's the most common misconception about improv and its role in the workplace?
I think for me, the biggest misconception is that improvisation is winging it, like just with absolutely no prep, no thought, no structure, just see what happens. That isn't what improv is about. Like we do so much practice and rehearsal and learning loads of like very tangible, specific techniques so that we can create in the moment and be flexible and adaptable and go with the flow and all those sorts of things. So yeah, we're not just winging it. It's very thought through, it's very rehearsed. What we're not rehearsing is the content. What we are rehearsing is the techniques and the structures and the formats. And also I think there's a little bit of a misconception that you have to be like quick and funny and like quick-witted to do it. That's not true. Improv makes you think faster and find the joke faster and dance on your feet. Like it makes you those things. You don't have to be them to do it.
That is so insightful, and it really builds on what I was saying at the beginning, that this is really a mindset shift and a set of skills that can help you respond in the moment with more confidence. And I have to share, I'm an introvert, and I took a bit of theater classes when I was younger while I was working just for fun. I've just really enjoyed it. And the thing that terrified me the most was improv because I'm the type of person that really, really likes to prepare. I don't like to be on the spot. And I learned over time that it can really help you. Vince, what would you like to add on?
Oh, it's all been really clear so far. The only thing I'll add is so also an improv performer. Um, Also had a speech impediment, learning issues, stuttering. So improv for me is sort of therapeutic. But when you're on stage and also when you're in the workplace, your partner is a genius. So everyone thinks again, you're nervous. Well, I'm not funny. I'm not clever. Well, who cares? It's about making the other person look good.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that's something we really stress when we talk about ways to overcome anxiety or a lack of confidence when it comes to presenting is it's not about you. It's about being in service of the audience. And when you kind of shift it to that, it helps to take that tension away and just be in the moment and contribute. So in improv, it's about helping your partner look good. Yeah. Yeah, gosh, there's so many intersections here. So let's talk a little bit about the application of improv as it relates to presentations, kind of as was just touching on. Often, what makes a lot of people really uneasy when it comes to presenting is fear of the unexpected. Fear that there's going to be a technical glitch, fear that suddenly you're on stage, everyone's looking at you and you forget what you're going to say, fear that you're going to get a really difficult question. So, Jess, how can we use improv to respond with more confidence in those unexpected moments?
So one of the things that improv has really helped me to have is this sort of mindset of like, I can cope with whatever is said because you obviously it's not scripted. So and like Vince, I'm a performer as well. And so you're going on stage and you genuinely don't know what's going to happen. And so you learn through the techniques like yes and the yes and sort of practical application is really about accepting reality, accepting someone else's reality and engaging with it and building on it. And so through techniques like that, you kind of get to this space where you're like, I genuinely am fine with whatever happens. Like, I can cope with if you say that we're going to be monkeys on the moon, great. And so then suddenly a tech glitch is like not that deep. So you just get to a place where you're like, I can cope. I can cope with whatever is going to happen.
Mm. This?
Remind me the question.
The question is, how can you use improv to feel more at ease when delivering presentations, especially as it relates to fearing that unexpected?
So a technique I love is just looking around the room and counting things. I did it just now because I had a little panic when I forgot the question. And then I just decided to over accept it, smile and say, sorry, what was the question again? Forgot to apologize, but I forgot the question. I really did. What I'm doing right now is I'm noticing there are 3 lights on around me. What I'm noticing right now is exactly where the door is. I'm noticing my coffee cup. You just get out of your head and you get into reality. So when you're on stage and you're panicking, it's easy to say, think of the audience. It's not about you. But an actual practical tip to do that is just like, interesting. I wonder how many chairs are in here. Oh, the carpet's red. Oh, that's an interesting color of red. Oh, there's a stain on the carpet. Whatever. Just notice what's going on. And then pretty much after that, you stop thinking about the terror inside of you.
Okay, yeah. And I would imagine that technique helps you to also be completely present, which helps to get you out of your head and just being in the moment and taking whatever comes. Okay. All right, good. All right, another question related to presentations and improv. We all know that to deliver an effective presentation takes a whole lot of preparation and practice. However, we want to come off extemporaneous in the moment. So, how can improv help to come off more authentic and present and not overly scripted? Vince.
Patricia Ryan Madsen, who's my main mentor in this space, who you know well, Carrie, wrote this book, Improv Wisdom. And one of the anecdotes in her book is when she gives a presentation, she doesn't memorize the content. She just memorizes a few questions. And you probably already taught this technique in PowerSpeaking. It's just sort of like, you just have a framework. You don't have a script. Who am I? Why am I here? What's important to me? Or whatever it is. 3 questions, 5 questions. So you're answering questions. You're having a dialogue with yourself rather than delivering content word for word.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yes. And as you know, Jess, that is one of the tools that are threaded throughout all of our workshops is the value of having that framework, that structure that helps to organize your thoughts, being clear on the main messages that you want to convey, but not have it memorized and scripted, which again enables you to be more present in that moment. Very good. Very good. So let's also talk about meetings. Meetings are obviously an integral part of our workplace and outside of work. And I know a challenge that a lot of people have, especially depending on who's in the meeting, the purpose of the meeting, is a thing that holds them back from contributing is overthinking their response. So, Jess, how can improv help respond more with ease and without rambling?
Yeah. So there's sort of 2 parts to this for me. There's the mindset piece. And this talks to a little bit about what Vince was saying around make other people look good. Like that's one of the first rules that you learn. And so we have this notion of offers in improv. Like I'm making an offer and I'm offering you the location, the what we're doing, the relationship, whatever it might be. And those offers are helpful. Like it's helpful, they're needed. Like it's important for my scene partner that I offer something. Doesn't have to be amazing. It's just offer something. It's like bring a brick to this wall that we're creating together. And so I think if you have that mindset of like, no, I am helping them by making an offer rather than I'm trying to like show off or showcase myself or make myself look clever or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's about I'm going to be helpful to my colleagues through this offer. So that kind of mindset piece. And then for me, the sort of second part of it, the sort of not rambling, So we do what we call monologues in improv, and they're normally true stories that then provide inspiration for a series of scenes if we're doing a sort of longer format of improv. And we have some of these phrases that we use, like that makes me think of, or that reminds me of a time when, and these little phrases help us to shortcut what is being said, like the suggestion from the audience or in the meeting situation, the topic that's on the table, to opinion, point of view, story, and we like shortcut to then be able to talk. And then I learned a really useful phrase at the end of a monologue, which that made me realize. And so even if you have been rambling a bit, if you stick in and that made me realize, it just ties it up with a neat little bow and makes it sound like in some way thought out, even if it wasn't thought out in the first place. So those little phrases, that makes me think of, that reminds me of a time when, that made me realize, that those are what we would have as like shortcuts to make our brain think faster.
Oh, wow. Those are great techniques. Really great. And you're also helping me to appreciate another reason improv is so relevant in the workplace is it, I would imagine, really facilitates collaboration. If you're coming into this meeting, the discussion of wanting to make the other person look good, of wanting to be in service of that other person. That's great. Not, being performative, showing off, etc.
Yeah.
Excellent. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Vince?
Just one quick thing. The hardest thing for me when I'm doing scene work is I love asking questions because that's just how I was raised. My dad's a lawyer and I want to be a good student, and I raise my hand. I have a question. Questions on stage are kind of toxic. Where are we? Instead, like, give an offer. Here we are back in Barcelona. Wow, look at the architecture. Make a statement. So do at a meeting rather than ask questions, which puts other people on the spot. Bill, what were the sales figures for last month? And Bill's like, just a second. So it raises your status, but might make Bill look bad, and then you're not really contributing. Instead of questions, we call them piss-offs, PSOFs, positive statements of fact. Wow, look at the attendance at this meeting. This is the most people we've had in quite a while. Great. Well, let's get going. Make a positive statement of fact. Try to avoid questions unless you're being paid to ask questions, unless you're a consultant. It's an internal meeting, questions are kind of toxic.
What was the phrase again? Positive
P-
statements.
PSOF, piss off.
Piss off. Okay. Oh, I love
Positive statement
that.
of fact.
I love that. What if you really want to know though from Bill what the sales figures are?
Of course. I'm not saying avoid them. It's not a rule. There are no rules in improv. It's just try to, rather than open with a question. Well, gee, how many people are there here today? Gosh, I can't believe it. We have 12 people packed in this room. Normally this meeting is only 10. Amazing. Welcome to the two new people. Just make us big. If you have to ask a question, of course, ask a question. If that's your job, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. That really helps. And we're having a lot of reaction to techniques that already are just so tangible and helpful. So Vince, let's build on this concept of how improv can help us in meetings. How can it help us contribute in a meaningful way if we haven't had the benefit of preparing in advance?
I think it's sort of a broken record here, but it just goes back to attention. Notice what's happening in the room. Notice the group dynamic. Notice the body language. Notice who's speaking. Notice who isn't speaking. Cyril, it's great to see you here, and I think I would love to hear from you on this issue. Puts her on the spot. Maybe she resents you. More likely, she's happy to say something. She's just been intimidated the whole time. Assuming you know her and you know that she's not terrified, of
Yes.
speaking in a group. Things like that. Just bring people in. You acknowledge the time. Well, guys, okay, so we're at the 90-minute mark, and as we all know, this is a 100-minute meeting. We've got 10 more minutes. Just make statements, keep things moving. Don't be afraid to be a facilitator. That's a different form of leadership, but people appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you can play that role regardless of your role within an organization. It's a great way to contribute and draw others out. Jess, how can improv help If you are asked a question that kind of puts you on the defense, how can improv help you respond in a more positive, non-defensive way?
I've come back to yes and I mentioned earlier that sort of practical application of yes and. It's so funny. I do a lot of work with a theatre in London called Blanche Improv, and myself and the founder, we obviously are complete nerds, and so we talk about improv all the time. And we obviously both coach, and we so often come back. It's like everything comes back to yes and listening so often. And for me, this is really about tapping into the true meaning of yes and. I think that statement alone proves that I'm a nerd about improv, the true meaning of yes and. As I say earlier, this notion of I am genuinely accepting your reality. And you see beginner improvisers not being able to really yes and because they still have this sort of ego barrier up. So they're a little defensive in scenes, and they do a lot of sort of yes butting. Happens in work a lot as well. And so this like devoid of ego, genuinely accepting your offer, your reality, your question, your challenge, whatever. I'm accepting that that's true for you, in the very least, in a work context. And then without that ego, and because I've genuinely accepted it, I'm going to now lean in and engage with it and build on it, or whatever it might be. And it honestly, like, it takes work to be that comfortable, maybe years of therapy, I don't know, but that genuine comfort to be like, I accept your challenge. It doesn't, and this is where character work in improv is very helpful. You know, we're never called by our own names on stage because we want to have that separation. We don't want to be seen as our characters on stage. So, you know, you can keep a little bit of separation. Just because you're challenging my point doesn't mean you're challenging who I am as a person. And so I'm going to accept your challenge, accept your different reality to mine. And rather than leaning away, which is a but or a however, if you want to be fancy about it, I'm going to lean in and engage with it and be curious and build on it, or whatever it might be, even if it takes you somewhere else. You're not blindly agreeing. Sorry, I have so much to say about yes and. Doesn't mean you're just saying like, yes, I agree with you. That's not what yes and is. You can disagree. It's just not dismissing. So disagreeing is absolutely great. That's all cool. It's just not dismissing someone's reality.
Great. I love that. So can we do a quick example?
Yeah, totally.
Jess, you work within our organization. I'm the leader of the organization. We have a very, very finite budget, and you really want to bring in an improv workshop to increase collaboration and creativity in the workplace. And my response to you is, Jess, this is about achieving the bottom line. We don't have time for that non-essential type stuff within the workplace.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, like, I'd love to understand a little bit more about like, what do you see as essential and non-essential, so that we can kind of get a bit more specificity around that and maybe figure out what the sort of boundaries are here. So what for you is essential and not essential?
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, that was
Impressed.
yeah, right. I mean, not defensive at all, just seeking to understand and hopefully getting to a good spot. We have a question from Mary McGlynn. You talk about advanced preparation for meetings. In the Q&A section of a presentation, how do you incorporate improv techniques?
Accept the question, repeat the question, acknowledge the question, clarify the question. Active listening. I mean, I can't say that improv is active listening, the Venn diagram here, but active listening is a big part of what improv actually is. So I don't know if that answers the question, if that's helpful, but just dig into the details and acknowledge who's asking. It has nothing to do with content because that's specific to the meeting itself. But as an attitude, just use your best active listening, which I know is a big part of your whole platform, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what we teach is, again, come from a place of seeking to understand. So paraphrasing obviously can be a very, very useful technique. And having the courage, if you're not quite sure about the question behind the question, to dig into that. Thank you, Mary. So we've talked a lot about yes and the deep meaning of yes and. I would love to hear, Vince, from you. Uh, Tell us about a situation in which you were able to turn a no but person into a yes ander.
So my first job out of college was running a nonprofit education organization down in a city called New Orleans, which is a really unique part of America, very special and kind of troubled place. And we were outsiders. The program had come in from San Francisco, and it was a bit like an organ transplant. The community hadn't really fully accepted us. They loved the result. We were getting first generation kids into colleges, and overachieving kids were getting scholarships to private high schools and colleges. But still, the community was a little bit skeptical of this group, and I was running the program, and I was just swimming upstream. So what I did was I just gave everything away. I got a group of parents together who I knew were really active and passionate because we're teaching their kids, we're helping their students. So they're highly motivated. And the program is essentially free for the families, and we're giving a lot of value to the community. And I just said, look, I'm going to be leaving. I've been here 5 years. I'm going to go back to grad school. I wanted to essentially give this program to you guys. I want you to run this program when I leave. And that just activated all of this because it didn't feel like some colonizing effect anymore. It was like, no, you guys are in charge. What do you like about this program? What do you not like about this program? Then we brought in a new director to replace me, who was from the local community. And anyway, things really turned around. So we went from being in debt to having a surplus. We went from having a slight resistance to being fully accepted. And the program is still there and still going strong many, many decades later. So that's I wasn't consciously thinking about improv, but I was using all the improv I had done in college in that moment to just pivot the situation.
Oh, so it wasn't being done to them. It was something that they were able to embrace and kind of make their own. That must have been such rewarding work. I mean,
It
not
was really fun.
distance, but what you were able to do for those first generation students.
It felt great. Yeah, I'm still in touch with a lot of those kids.
Oh,
One of them's gonna take my improv class in September.
oh, very cool. Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's talk about another thing that both have touched on in terms of part of what improv is about. Is it deep listening? So, Jess, can you share with us an improv exercise people can do in just a few minutes to sharpen their listening and response skills?
Yeah, of course. There are two that come to mind. And they're quite similar. So hopefully we could either do both at the same time or you can use them separately. So one exercise we use is you leave a 5-second pause between the end of the last person's line and your next line. And this is actually something I've used in training, particularly with coaching, when we're learning coaching technique. And it just gives that little bit of extra space. Now, the 5 seconds are loose. You don't want to be only counting in your head and not using that time to process, but it's about actively put a pause in between the end of that line and the next one, so you can, as I say, process. And then the other one is you repeat before you continue and with the scene or whatever, you repeat the last line that the previous player said. And you do it in a way that kind of works in the dialogue. So if you could arguably have it loosely in your mind in a meeting that you're going to slightly summarize before you add your next thing. But as a true exercise, you would verbatim repeat the last line and then build on it. So it's you're making yourself listen because you're going to repeat it.
I was going to say, I mean, that puts you in this space where you are very focused and very intentional about listening to what other people are contributing.
Yeah.
And I love the power of the pause. I mean, that's a technique that we talk about in presentations, of course, and how incredibly powerful and essential it is for a whole host of reasons. Love those. They're just so practical and tangible. We have a question from Rachel. Sometimes paraphrasing as part of active listening comes off as condescending. How can you make it more authentic? I love that.
Yeah, it's do you know, I think this is one of my like things about presenting. Sometimes authenticity almost counterintuitively takes rehearsal. Like you kind of have to practice what is my way of doing that and figuring out what sounds sort of normal to you. And so it might be that you find your in of it. So rather than saying something like, it sounds to me like what you're saying is this, which might sound, maybe not right in your voice. Maybe it might be like, okay, cool. So I'm hearing this, this, and this. Great. Love that. Here's what I'm thinking now. So and like you just find your own tone to it, but you might need to like practice that a bit to figure out what your tone is. Sometimes when we're trying to be authentic with no practice, it doesn't necessarily come off in the way that we might intend it to.
Oh, that's, I think, spot on. And it's something that we talk about a lot as it relates to how to develop what we call powerful presence instead of executive presence. Is it often starts with a lot of internal work in terms of being really, really clear on how we want to show up and what is our own personal brand and style, and how does that express itself in a variety of ways. The other thing that comes to mind with regard to this response is paraphrasing isn't always the right response. So sometimes a person will have a tendency to paraphrase because they're trying to buy time to come up with an appropriate response. So the person might say, "We don't have that in the budget." So what I'm hearing is we don't have funding for this. Well, it was pretty black and white. We don't really need to paraphrase. Actually, that was a really poor example. But I'm trying to think, if the objective is to buy yourself time to come up with an appropriate response, simply say, "I need to think about that for a minute." Right? That's
Yeah.
authentic versus a paraphrase when it isn't really necessary because the question is crystal clear. That wasn't the best example, but hopefully that helps, Rachel. Was anything coming to mind for you, Vince?
I learned this thing called iMessages back when I was doing conflict resolution when I was a middle school teacher in New Orleans. It's similar, exactly the same. I think you've heard that phrase. It's just, yeah, starting with I. I'm hearing that we're running out of time and we might, or I'm hearing that resources are limited rather than I hear you saying that and everyone's like, no, that's not quite what I meant. And so, yeah, it's more, just be more vulnerable, be more personal.
Yeah, I phrases. Again, so tangible. Uh, Vince, I'd like to talk a little bit about lessons leaders can learn from improv, and specifically, how can improv techniques be used to encourage more inclusivity and creativity in group discussions?
So Patricia talks about in her new book, she's still working on her second book. She talks about the 4 A's of improv. Her first book has 13 maxims, and she's 82, and she's like, I can't remember 13 things anymore. So it's all four down to 13 to four, and they all start with the letter A. And it's basically attention, obviously, that's the key. Then acceptance, accept reality, appreciation, and then action. And the one she thinks of the four, she thinks appreciation is the most important in terms of this aspect of for leaders or for all of us, really. It's just appreciating, um, even just when you're checking out at your hotel, like I'm going to do tomorrow morning, just being specific. I was so grateful that they came up and fixed the chair in my room so I could do my presentation, my webinar, and not be down here in the frame or whatever. Just being specific about appreciation. So when leaders have a group meeting, again, it can sound phony, it can sound fake. You've got to do it in a way that's real. But I see people do this all the time. I love your hair. You can tell when that's mean, when they mean it. Those are cute sandals. Just whatever it is. Those are superficial, small things, but they sort of lubricate life. And you can do that in a meeting too. I've worked in companies and schools and organizations where leaders are really good at that. appreciating other people, your dedication to making this program work is whatever it is. So just appreciating others, I think, is always a good practice.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, in a very genuine, individualized way. What are the 4 A's again?
Of course, yeah, and they have to credit her with this one, but it's attention,
Okay.
uh, acceptance, appreciation, and action.
Okay. Oh, I love that. When is the book coming out? Do you know?
We don't know. I'm trying to help her edit it.
Ah,
She's Her first book was so successful. You know how it is. Like if your first book is really, it's in like
stakes are
14
super,
languages.
super high. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
She has a ton of content, but
uh, for the audience, Andrew, our producer, if you get a moment, the name of the book again, that not the new one, but the existing one.
I'll type it in. Yeah, it's
Okay.
called Improv Wisdom.
Improv Wisdom. Jess,
Yeah,
if
and
you
it's
haven't read it, I highly
you should.
recommend it. We actually read it as one of our Power Speaking Book Club books because there were so many applications for the work that we do. The thing I was so struck by when I read the book is it was beyond how improv can be used to more effectively present, to more effectively contribute. It was a lifestyle choice. I mean, how you choose to live your life. I mean, there was so much depth to it. I was profoundly impacted, and Patricia was so very gracious to actually join our book club and contribute to the discussion. And she's how I became connected with you, Vince. So that gratitude in action. And I can tell you responded, Jess, that you believe too. It's a lifestyle.
Oh my goodness. It is like it really, and again, I know I'm a complete convert, but it's really like changed my life. Like it's changed how I communicate, changed how I work. Also, I met my husband through improv, so that helps too. So it
All
really like
kinds of benefits.
crossover with it.
All kinds of benefits. And also I love the point about acceptance because that harkens back to something we talked about earlier. Like, how can we draw on improv to be less anxious or fearful about the unexpected occurring in the middle of a presentation? For example, accept it. Accept it. This is what's happened. And here's how I'm going to respond in a productive way.
Yeah.
So, you both offered so much sage advice. And again, I love that it's all so very tangible and practical. I think our audience deserves to see a little improv in action. And you gave us a taste of that, Jess. So are you both game for a few rapid fire scenarios?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each of you a common workplace scenario. And your job is to respond as if this were happening in real time. So we'll lead off with you, Jess. You're in a meeting, and suddenly your boss asks for your input on a high stakes project you've never heard of. How do you respond?
I have to be really honest with you. I haven't heard of that project. Can you give me some more detail, please?
Honest. Honest.
That
Great.
so
Great.
yeah. You learn not
To what might be some people's tendency?
Sorry, what was the name of it? Sorry, could you just
Or worse, make something up?
Yeah,
We-
yeah. I know we're pretending in improv, but you're
What-
That's the one
it's the
where
truth.
That's the one we're putting monkeys on the moon, right? I love that idea. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
monkeys on the moon.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Ready, Vince? You're in the middle of delivering a presentation to a big client of yours, and the client says, "This isn't remotely what we were expecting." How do you respond to try to keep the conversation productive?
Just over accept and ask them, "Oh, thank you for speaking up. Tell me more. What were you expecting?" And just make myself vulnerable and try to get at what they wanted. And if they list off 15 things that I'm totally unprepared for, I'll just say, I'll get back to you soon. Let's schedule a follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no matter what, I'm stopping what I'm doing.
Yeah. I love how you led with, thank you for speaking up. Help me to understand, what were you expecting? Yes. Good, good, good. Okay, Jess. I was trying to remember what I have here. Okay. You've just finished making a point in a meeting. Crickets. And the head of the department who's considering you for a promotion is in the meeting.
Okay. I probably would laugh, to be honest. I'd probably be like, well, that clearly went down extremely well. You clearly are all bursting with questions. One at a time, please. So probably make a bad, corny joke. And then at that stage, I'd probably break it down and be like, okay, so I talked about X. How is that going to relate to your job, Vince? And then get specific and ask somebody.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And, what you just exhibited there, not only is your ability to respond on the spot, but that importance of authenticity. I mean, that felt very much like that's your natural style. It wouldn't necessarily work for everybody. So that's also the key is to make it your own, make it real. Wonderful. Okay, Vince, I've got a doozy for you. You're in a virtual team meeting and you make a really snarky comment about the meeting facilitator through private chat to one of your teammates, only to find you accidentally sent it to the entire group.
Oh my God, new fear unlocked.
What's your next?
I find the nearest window and just defenestrate myself. No, oops. I mean, over accept the oops. I can't, I said that in the heat of temper. That was totally inappropriate. Again, just over and fall on my sword and just sort of say, I'm so sorry. Let me follow up later and apologize to each and every one of you. Let's please keep the meeting going forward. Right.
You're keeping it real. You're keeping it real. I'm sorry. That was, I guess the big lesson there. Don't do that. Just
don't do it. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Oh my God, my heart.
It's getting into such danger zone. I love it. I loved how authentic you all were and just kept it real. So thank you. Thank you. I'm listening. We have a question from Lonnie Smith. We have heard great success stories. Can you talk about accepting improv failure in the moment and the importance of letting yourself be vulnerable? Thank you for that question, Lonnie. And I know Lonnie and can tell you that one of his hobby is theater. So I have a hunch that perhaps Lonnie's encountered this. So what's your response?
It's an interesting question because it's quite hard to fail in improv. In the sense of like, I'm trying to sort of think about like what actually is a failure, because obviously like kind of everything's up for grabs. I mean, when maybe you're not improvising to the best of your ability, let's say, maybe you've done a few blocks and you've like accidentally said something that really doesn't land with the audience. That is when and this is when having the tools in your toolkit are so important, rather than like dwelling for ages on the fact that, I asked an unhelpful question in a scene or blocked somebody accidentally or said something that was a bit of faux pas. What I try to do is move on fairly quickly and do something different. So like one of my go-to techniques in improv, which isn't really a transferable thing, but is add into the scene a endowment, confession, or a history. So endowment of the other character, a confession that's something that my character has done, or history that I have between the other two, the other character, and it just moves the scene on a bit. And I have to say, where I've had situations in training where like maybe some uninclusive language has been used by somebody in the room and I've had to call it out, rather than like dwelling on it for a long time. You correct it and then you move on. and you move away from it. And then you can check back later if it's appropriate, but you give everyone an opportunity for like a palate cleanse on what's just happened. Like acknowledge, change, and then move on.
Ah, I like that. And Vince, you demonstrated that with the last scenario I gave you. You owned it. You apologized. Let's keep this meeting moving. The last thing you want to do is just go, because then you're making it all about you and not the sting and the impact that you've caused in that moment. Oh, those are great, Jess. I saw your wheels churning. Vince, anything you want to add?
I was just running through scenarios. I mean, so that PSOF thing, I have to credit a guy named Dave Dennison, who was the head of education at a group called BATS, Bay Area Theater Sports, which is a Keith. Jess, do you know Keith, the work of Keith Johnstone?
Yeah,
Elusive Grit,
yeah.
Brit, who became a Canadian. Anyway, so Dave teaches workshops at BATS, and PSOF was his thing. Dave's a very harsh teacher, and he was really critical of me in his workshop a couple months ago because I go so fast sometimes. My nervous energy, so that's a failure. I just sort of just talk too much, talk too quickly. Even though I've been doing this a long time, I still get nervous. We all get nervous, so that's one fail point. And another fail point in general I've already mentioned is just failing to be specific. And Jess has already touched on this, where like an entire scene goes by, we don't know anyone's name on the stage. Names kind of matter. Or like, we don't know where you are. And what's your relationship to each other? Fundamental things just go unframed. So that's improv performance. But I think that forwards into the workplace again, where it's like context and just and appreciation of reality and acknowledgement of situations and people's roles and contributions, etc. I would say those would be fail points for me.
Excellent. Thank you for owning that. And I don't know why this just popped into my head. I think when you acknowledged, despite how long you've been doing this and how experienced you are, you get nervous. And it just made me think of it's extra impactful from my perspective that you're doing the work you do, knowing that you had a stutter at one point. I mean, that's just incredible to push through that. Let's see. Rachel said, our Andrew Moore recently shared that in stand-up comedy, the worst thing you can do when a joke doesn't land and is to dwell on it. Best to move on quickly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, wonderful. Gosh, the audience participation has been terrific. Thank you so much. So I'd like to close us out with each of you giving our listeners one improv mindset to carry into every workplace interaction starting tomorrow. Vince, why don't we kick off with you?
Well, I said it before, but it begs repeating. Find a way every single day to appreciate someone around you for something super specific that they did or do, and to go into the really almost painful detail about the way that you made that report is so different than I've seen before. It gives us really actionable items that must have taken a long time, and I'm really grateful. Something rather than nice report or good job,
Yeah.
or those kind of platitudes, a pat on the back. So find ways to be specifically appreciative.
Oh, love that. Love that. Jess?
There's so many. It's really difficult. I'll try to choose something that maybe has been spoken about in passing, but rather than sort of going is that presence piece. Kind of talked about it as an outcome of the sort of deep listening. But I think it can be more than an outcome. It can be a proactive choice as well. And in order to genuinely, truly improvise and collaborate and create, you have to decide, and it is a choice, to be present, to put aside whatever is going on for you. And this is why we do warm-ups and stuff before shows and even if it's just 2 minutes. But making the conscious choice to be present, and that then paves the way for your ability to yes and to do the listening, to create, to do the confessions, whatever it might be. So make the choice to be present, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Make the choice. Make the choice to be present. And it is a choice.
Choice is choice. Yeah, it's hard. Hard today, particularly, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have to be very, very intentional and also be intentional about uh, uh, recognizing someone's contribution and be very specific about it. That's wonderful too, Vince. Thank you both. This has been such an enjoyable conversation and very, very insightful. I picked up a lot of new techniques and I will share for the audience because there were so many nuggets in here. We frequently follow up these live events with a blog, and I know we will in this case. So there'll be more opportunity to consume and digest and apply the great advice that both of our incredible guests offer. Thank you both so much. And I'm going to close by teeing up the topic for next month's live. We're going to be talking about change and the critical role communication plays in helping to do that effectively within an organization. Join us.